Let's bring in former Missouri Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill. She is an MS Now political analyst. And Ben Rhodes, he served as a deputy national security advisor under President Obama. He played a central role in the Obama-era nuclear deal with Iran. It is good to see you both. Senator, can you get over that sound? I mean, Fox Business, that's supposed to be his comfy, cozy place. Even they're turning on him.
Well, yeah, Kudlow's, a big-time Trumper, wave the flag, MAGA forever. So the fact that Kudlow is going after the senator from Oklahoma is remarkable. And by the way, he's correct. The American people are fed up with the status quo, and that includes all the incumbents in Congress, not just Republicans. So the fact that this war is one that no one saw coming, that it was a war of choice, that has accomplished nothing. In fact, it has made things worse, not better. The Strait of Hormuz was open before. Now it is not. We have ignited more problems across the Middle East. And now, I don't want to jump a later question, but the whipped cream and cherry here is him making a deal with Saudi to enrich uranium. At this moment, it's nuts. I don't think these people know what they're doing, and they certainly are not connected politically right now with where the American public is.
You're always welcome to jump ahead, and yes, we will talk about that deal with Saudi Arabia. But first, Ben, I want you to take a listen to how the president characterized the war and negotiations to end it just last night.
I call it a skirmish. This is with this skirmish we have with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and I call it that because let me tell you, they're getting hit so hard, and they want to make a deal. But I say they're not ready to make a deal. Because every time they make a deal, they want to change it and everything. They're not ready. They'll be ready very soon.
So it's no longer an excursion. It's a skirmish. You know better than anyone, Ben, negotiations with Iran don't just happen. What is the president getting wrong about all of this?
Well, in a word, everything. Everything he just said there is wrong. It's not a skirmish, it's a war. And to tell Americans it's a skirmish when we have coffins coming home to Dover, people dying in this war, when we have people paying much higher prices at the pump, and that's going to keep going up because oil is now back over $100 a barrel, the consequences of what he's doing are not a skirmish. It's also not true that, Iran, that he somehow has these cards, right? Part of the reason why he's so frustrated that he's resumed this war is that Iran wasn't budging in negotiations. So when he says they desperately want to make a deal, well, that's not what everybody just saw over the last few months. It felt like Trump was the one who wanted a deal, and the Iranians just wanted to demonstrate that they continued to control the Strait of Hormuz. And just think about where we are, Alicia. He is principally fighting and escalating a war to reopen a body of water that was open before the war that he started. It encapsulates in totality the insanity and stupidity of this war at the same time. We're not even talking about a nuclear deal. Even under the last memorandum of understanding, that was something that was going to be negotiated later. It was just about reopening the Strait of Hormuz. So he's walked himself into a cul-de-sac here. We're at a dead end, and we can't get out of it. And the only way to get out of it is to pretty much cut your losses, make some kind of deal that is probably going to upset the hawks in Trump's party who supported this war. But the problem, to connect to what Claire said, is what is the constituency for this? Even some of those MAGA voters who still say they're for it are probably just people that are for whatever Donald Trump wants to do. There's not exactly like a groundswell of Americans that really want to see this thing through several more months, and maybe the application of ground forces to seize nuclear materials and continued disruptions and shortages in the global economy. Nobody is asking for this. Just like, as Claire said, nobody's asking for a nuclear program for Saudi Arabia. We have an affordability crisis in this country. We have chaos and instability around the world. Those are the two things Donald Trump ran for president saying he would end. He would bring down prices, he would end the war in Ukraine on day one, and he would not get us into forever wars. He's done exactly the opposite, never mind all the other things he's done.
Senator, that cul-de-sac that Ben just referenced that the president is standing at the end of, he's not standing there alone. He's standing there with most Republicans in Congress. This morning, there was a vote on a war powers resolution. 4 House Republicans broke with their party and supported that. Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, Warren Davidson of Ohio, Tom Barrett of Michigan. They want out. 7 others did not vote at all. That includes South Carolina's Nancy Mace. Over in the Senate, you had a similar measure that was voted down. A number of Republicans chose not to vote, including Rand Paul, Lisa Murkowski, Katie Britt. it's a sign, to the point that you and Ben have both made, that there's no political constituency for this. There is just Donald Trump and his ego. Why is that still enough to have so many Republicans continue to hold the line?
Yeah, first of all, I don't recognize the Armed Services Committee in the Senate that I was honored to serve on for 12 years. I don't recognize it. Regardless of the party of the president, they have completely ceded the power of the United States Senate to oversee the American military. They have decided it is not their job anymore. I lay this all at the feet of Roger Wicker, and they could be doing a lot more right now to demand more information for the American public, more transparency about what's going on. They're hiding casualties. They're not acknowledging the cost the military is paying. They're pretending it's not going to cost $100 billion, and it will. They're saying the military is broke and asking for more money than, a 50% increase in the military. And the senators just aren't home. The Republican senators just aren't home. And those 4 senators that voted present, Lisa Murkowski is a friend of mine. I don't get that. I know she's getting a lot of stuff right now for Alaska by being a vote they've got to cater to. I know, but really, Rand Paul, come on. Rand Paul has voted against everybody so many times it makes my head hurt. Why didn't he have the courage to vote his conscience today? And what about Katie Britt? What is up with her? Now, I know Mitch isn't there and is not voting, but the idea that you don't have people like Tom Tillis and John Cornyn, who aren't even going to be there anymore, stepping up and saying, no, we need more oversight on what's going on. And that's what this vote would have done. It would have given them more oversight. It would have given them back some of the power they have under Article 1. And it is so depressing to watch the emasculation, the total destruction of the power of Congress in terms of checks and balances in this country.
Especially to your point, when everyone keeps saying that these wounded bears, the YOLO caucus, this is their moment to stand up and do something. This would have been the moment when they could have stood up and they could have done something, and they chose not to. Ben, there was a part of the speech the president gave last night that I don't think has gotten enough attention, and I think gives you a real window into his thinking here. Let's take a listen, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Our military is more powerful than it has ever been before by far. You see that. Venezuela, Iran. America is back. It's stronger than ever before.
This is what we've heard over and over again, that he thinks that what he was able to accomplish in Venezuela is replicable in Iran. It is not even apples and oranges. It is like apples and kittens, but he does not seem to understand that.
He doesn't. And look, what Venezuela was militarily, it was an incredibly ambitious special forces operation. You go in, you grab someone, you take them out. It was impressively done, but it's not qualitatively different from, the fact that the United States military has been doing special operations for 25 years. I think Venezuela raises another question here, Alicia, because in his mind, it's this massive success. We win and we grab Maduro. Now Marco Rubio has Delcy Rodriguez, the president of Venezuela, on speed dial. But I would ask
on WhatsApp,
what are the people...
They're very busy exchanging the memes.
He's checking social media with her. What are the people in that audience getting from that? Are any Americans' lives materially better because Marco Rubio is texting with Delcy Rodriguez? Let's just, maybe some barrels of oil have been delivered. Your prices at the pump are up, though. So it's not like the Venezuelan oil is making any kind of dent in cost of living in this country. It's just doing nothing for that. Nothing is materially different in Venezuela. There's still a corrupt communist government of Venezuela. They just happen to talk to Marco Rubio on the phone and probably do some business deals with some of Trump's associates. So even this thing that he thinks is this big success, where he is clearly living, Alicia, I've been in the White House, right? The dangers that the president, any president, even a normal president, can hear only good things. Oh, you made such a great decision, sir, like you did. That's all Trump hears. Venezuela was this historic military achievement, when in fact most Americans still don't understand why we did that. And then to apply the same logic to Iran, where you don't have the capacity. We tried to do the same thing. We assassinated the leader of Iran, and guess what? His son became the leader, and the entire government is resisting the United States, shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And so he's just taken this dangerous feedback loop of positive reinforcement, and he's following it down the pathway of doing things that the American people don't want, that the world certainly doesn't want. And I think we're seeing the dangers of a lot of things that have been pent up for years with Trump. The devaluation of expertise. He didn't listen to the experts before this. The only listening to praise so that you think everything you've done is the right thing. And this belief that he can kind of get himself out of any jam. But a war with Iran is a different scale of endeavor than the kinds of things that Trump has gotten himself out of before. And now he finds himself stuck in quicksand.
Yeah, and if you don't understand that after watching the dignified transfer yesterday, then I am not sure what would help him to understand the cost of what he has chosen here. Senator, I promised you we would get to the nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia this morning. The president posted it will only be for non-military use, and also that it was contingent on Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords